There's a quiet heaviness we rarely name. It doesn't live in our bodies, but we feel it just the same. A subtle ache somewhere between memory and intention. It's the weight of the unfinished, the book left half-read, the letter never sent, the dream that once felt urgent but now lives in a folder called someday. We often think what burdens us are the things we do. But sometimes what truly wears us down are the things we never finish. The fragments we carry in silence, not because we failed, but because we never learned how to put them down. We live in a world that glorifies completion. Finish what you start. Cross the line. Close the circle. And yet, life rarely allows such symmetry. We start friendships that quietly fade. We begin projects that lose momentum somewhere between excitement and exhaustion. We promise ourselves change, and then wake up months later wondering where that spark went. Most people think the problem is discipline or motivation, but it's deeper than that. It's about how we relate to incompleteness itself. To be human is to live among unfinished things. Our emotions are rarely neatly resolved. Our stories are filled with pauses that never found their ending. Even our personal growth moves in spirals, revisiting the same themes in new seasons of our lives. And yet, when something remains incomplete, we tend to feel shame, as though we've broken a moral rule of productivity. We try to hide our half-done attempts, our unspoken feelings, our unclosed chapters. We scroll past them, bury them, rename them as not important. But somewhere deep inside, they linger, not to haunt us, but to remind us that part of being alive is living inside the unfinished sentence. Why does the unfinished hurt so much? Because incompleteness touches something ancient in us, the part that longs for order, meaning, and closure. The human mind seeks patterns. It wants the story to make sense. It wants every thread to be tied neatly. So when something remains unresolved, our thoughts circle around it endlessly, like hands trying to smooth out a wrinkle in time. We confuse closure with peace, but they are not the same. Closure is the ending of a story. Peace is the understanding that some stories were never meant to end, only to change form. The project you left behind might have already served its purpose by teaching you what you no longer want. The person you lost contact with might not need an explanation. The silence itself might be the closing chapter. But because our culture worships the final result, the done, the achieved, the completed, we rarely pause to see the quiet wisdom in incompletion. We treat every unfinished thing as a failure rather than as a fragment of growth. Yet what if these fragments are not mistakes, but milestones? What if the things we left halfway are simply parts of our story that fulfilled their role and stepped aside? At some point, we have to learn the art of gentle release. To understand that completion is not about perfection, but acceptance. A flower is not unfinished because it falls before winter. A song is not incomplete because its last note fades into silence. And your journey is not broken because it didn't end where you imagined it would. The truth is, most of what we call unfinished are simply moments that had already given us what they were meant to give. The friendship that drifted taught you how to listen. The job you left taught you how to stand up for yourself. The dream that didn't happen taught you who you were becoming. Life doesn't always close doors gently. Sometimes, it simply moves us forward. And the pain of incompletion is often just the echo of attachment, our hearts clinging to something that has already done its work. Freedom begins when we stop forcing every chapter to have a perfect ending. When we realize that letting go isn't the same as giving up, it's the moment we stop arguing with what already is. To forgive an unfinished thing is to breathe again. To look at something you never completed and say, thank you for what you were, even if you could not become more. That's not failure. That's grace. Every day, we are surrounded by small, quiet reminders of this truth. The unread book still waiting on your shelf. The hobby you outgrew. The message you never sent. Each carries a whisper, not of guilt, but of gentleness. They ask not to be finished, but to be understood. You can hold the memory of what once inspired you without needing to resume it. You can keep the photograph without rewriting the story. You can even begin something new without erasing what came before. Closure, in its truest form, is not about tidying the past. It's about living peacefully alongside it. It's walking through a room where every object once meant something and smiling, not because it's all perfect, but because it all belonged to your becoming. Some of the most meaningful moments in life never find a clean ending. The last time you spoke to someone, the last time you stood in a place you once called home, the last time you felt certain. These endings often arrive quietly, without your permission. And yet, when you stop demanding that every thread be tied, something beautiful happens. You make space for new beginnings. When we no longer carry the weight of every unfinished thing, we discover that not all incompletion is loss. Sometimes, it's transition. Sometimes, it's grace in motion, clearing space for the next chapter that could not exist if the last one never faded. Perhaps life itself is an unfinished masterpiece, one we are never meant to complete, only to live inside. And maybe peace isn't found in finishing everything, but in knowing that what remains undone can still be beautiful, because it reminds us we are still becoming.